The Austin Yogurt Shop murders, which occurred on December 6, 1991, is one of the most haunting and enigmatic crimes in American history. 4 young girls were brutally murdered in a local yogurt shop, a crime that rocked the city of Austin, Texas, and captured the national imagination. Despite numerous leads, suspects, and even confessions, the case remains unsolved, leaving behind a cloud of mystery and heartbreak. This video explores the chilling details of the case, the investigation, the theories, and the ongoing search for justice. The crime. On the night of December 6, 1991, 4 young girls were working the closing shift at the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop on Anderson Lane in Austin, Texas. The victims were Jennifer Harbison, 15, and her sister, Sarah Harbison, 12, Eliza Thomas, 17, and Stephanie Ciccarelli, 15. The girls had closed the shop for the night and were in the back of the store when they were attacked. The girls had planned to meet their families after work, but when they didn't show up, their families began to worry. The following morning, the fire department was called to the scene due to the smell of smoke. When firefighters entered the store, they found the bodies of the 4 girls who had been shot, sexually assaulted, and left to die. Investigators later determined that the fire was deliberately set in an attempt to cover up the crime. The crime scene was horrific. All 4 girls were sexually assaulted, shot, and left for dead. The store was set on fire, which severely damaged much of the evidence. The fire destroyed several key pieces of physical evidence, including the girls' clothes, fingerprints, and other forensic traces. Despite this, investigators found crucial evidence, such as a cigarette butt, which eventually led to the discovery of DNA that would play a role in the investigation years later. However, the deliberate setting of the fire ensured that many aspects of the crime would remain shrouded in mystery for years to come. The investigation begins. The investigation into the Austin Yogurt shop murders was launched immediately, but the authorities were met with very few leads. Eyewitnesses didn't provide much useful information, as there were no reliable reports of suspects seen entering or leaving the store that night. The motive behind the crime remained unclear, and there was no apparent connection between the victims and any known criminal elements. Investigators initially believed the crime could have been a robbery gone wrong, but they quickly ruled that out after they discovered that the store's cash register contained money that had not been taken. This raised questions about the nature of the attack and led the police to explore other possibilities, including a targeted or personal motive. Over the years, the case would become notorious for the false confessions, multiple suspects, and the subsequent exonerations. However, despite all of this, no one was ever convicted of the murders. The investigation was complicated by a lack of physical evidence, the destruction of crucial clues in the fire, and a series of false confessions from individuals seeking attention or hoping to exploit the tragedy. The case grew colder with time, yet the memory of the brutal crime haunted the city, and the desire for justice remained strong in the community. The initial suspects. Early in the investigation, the authorities focused on a group of teenagers who were believed to be in the area on the night of the murders. These individuals, who later became known as the Austin Four, were interrogated but ultimately released due to a lack of evidence. The group consisted of 4 teenage boys who were seen in the area, but they had no direct connection to the crime scene. Investigators, having no better leads, began focusing on these teens, but no substantial evidence emerged to suggest their involvement. They were questioned but never formally charged. The investigation then shifted toward other possible suspects. In 1993, a breakthrough came when police arrested 2 suspects, Forrest and Charles "Chuck" Harbison, who were linked to the crime scene. Both were charged with murder and sexual assault based on new evidence. The evidence, however, was circumstantial and ultimately unreliable. The case against them unraveled in 1994 when it was revealed that the DNA evidence initially used to implicate them was later discredited. This led to the dropping of all charges, leaving the case in disarray. Despite this setback, investigators continued to pursue other leads in the hopes of bringing the true culprits to justice. The key theories and investigative setbacks. As the years passed, several theories emerged regarding the motives and identities of the perpetrators. One prevailing theory was that the murders were committed by a group of men who had planned the crime in advance. The theory gained credibility when a man named John Bradley was arrested in 1997 for the murders. Bradley's arrest was the result of a series of interviews with a former friend of his. According to the friend, Bradley had confessed to the murders and provided details about the crime that only the killer would know. However, Bradley was never charged with the crime and was eventually cleared of any involvement after DNA evidence was presented showing he had not committed the crime. Another theory that surfaced in 1999 centered around a man named Nathaniel Gordy, who was arrested in connection with the murders but later exonerated. In 2001, Gordy was released from jail after DNA evidence cleared him of involvement in the murders. Despite these investigative setbacks, the case remained open, with the Austin Police Department continuing to seek answers. The false confessions. One of the most baffling aspects of the Austin yogurt shop murders investigation was the series of false confessions that emerged over the years. Several individuals came forward, claiming responsibility for the murders, only to later retract their statements. One notable false confession came from a man named Alan Bell, who in 1999 told police that he had committed the murders. Bell's confession included detailed information about the crime that appeared to be accurate. However, his confession was later revealed to be false, as DNA evidence cleared him of any involvement. The false confessions added a layer of complexity to an already convoluted investigation. It became clear that someone or a group of people knew details about the crime scene, but it was difficult to determine whether the confessions were sincere or fabricated for personal reasons. New leads and DNA evidence. As the years passed, new leads emerged that brought hope for a breakthrough. In 2001, DNA evidence was discovered on a cigarette butt found at the scene of the crime. The DNA was sent to a lab for analysis, but it did not match any of the previously identified suspects. The discovery renewed interest in the case, but the identity of the perpetrator remained elusive. Despite the promising DNA evidence, no new arrests were made, and the case continued to stagnate. The inability to match the DNA to a known suspect left investigators and the public frustrated, and the case slowly faded from the headlines. The 2008 arrest of the yogurt shop killers. In 2008, a significant breakthrough occurred when two men, Michael and Jason Brooks, were arrested and charged with the yogurt shop murders. The arrest was based on new evidence that had been uncovered through DNA analysis. According to authorities, the Brooks brothers had been responsible for the murders and were linked to the crime scene through forensic evidence. However, in 2011, the case took a surprising turn when the charges against the Brooks brothers were dropped. After a review of the evidence, it was determined that the DNA evidence linking them to the crime was inconclusive and unreliable. The case was dismissed, and the brothers were released from custody. This development led to a renewed sense of frustration among the victims' families and the public. Once again, the mystery of the Austin yogurt shop murders was left unresolved. The ongoing search for answers. As of now, the Austin yogurt shop murders remain unsolved. The case has become a symbol of the difficulties investigators face when trying to solve high-profile murders. Despite the many false confessions, dead ends, and false leads, authorities have never been able to bring the perpetrators to justice. The investigation continues to be open, and the Austin Police Department has urged anyone with information to come forward. The case remains one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in American history, and the families of the victims continue to wait for closure. That's all for today's deep dive into the chilling 1991 Austin yogurt shop murders, a case that has haunted the city of Austin for decades. While the mystery remains unsolved, the search for justice continues. If you found this video as gripping as we did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more unsettling, unsolved mysteries. Don't forget to share this video with your friends to keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.